totally from left field, but I was just flipping through your bio on the bus on the way down, and I saw an old photo of you holding a fretless bass. And I'm wondering, what are the advantages of playing a fretless bass, and is that something you pick up every now and then, or was it just for a short period?
Actually, it never occurred to me to play a fretless bass, and when we formed the church, there was a friend of our then drummer who played fretless bass, and the then drummer was always needling me about, so-and-so can play fretless bass and you can't. So one day I just went and bought a fretless bass, and then I played it on stage and played it on records. But it was really a stupid thing to do for a singer because it didn't have the... I must have been... I was probably always slightly out of tune because I couldn't really... you sort of... I think singers need fretted basses. But the advantage of a fretless bass is all kinds of advantages. You can sort of do all that zooming and plunging down and all that kind of... It makes a completely different sound, but... it was really an inappropriate bass for me to play. And then later on, when I went through my hard and troubled times, I hocked and lost my fretless bass. And now I don't play fretless bass, but if someone gave me a fretless bass, or if I had one, I would certainly get it out for sort of, probably, I would say for like 1/5 of the songs I record. I would think fretless bass would be nice, but I don't like it all the time. So.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Thanks. Yeah, I was just curious about that. And then, good news here. The Isidore record has been added to the playlist here on the station, which is awesome. So I've played it.
Hooray!
I'm going to plug it.
It's Isidore. It's Isidore.
Oh, Isidore. Oh, very...
Isidore, yeah.
Isidore. Well, what is the origin of that word?
What's that?
What is the actual linguistic origin of that word?
That's
Isidore.
Geoffrey Kane's word. There was a Saint Isidore, and there was also a famous poet who wrote under the name of Lautréamont in France, and he wrote this very dark, nasty poems, but his real name turned out to be Isidore Ducasse, and then he wrote a book of good poems under that name. But Geoffrey thought up the name, I'm not sure which one he's going for, or a mixture of both.
Right. And we are, listeners, we're talking about Geoffrey Kane, who is the other part of the duo here, of Isidore. Now, it's quite a very remarkable story about how you guys got together to collaborate. I imagine over the years a number of people have approached you with their instrumental tracks, and Steve, can you play on this?
Yeah.
But why him in particular? It sounded like you really, immediately you were grabbed.
Well, he was the first one when it sort of started to happen, when this idea that suddenly it was very easy to give someone an instrumental track. Because up until then, like if you met someone in 1985 and said, hey, I've written an instrumental track for you to sing on, that was a very complicated process. You'd have to send them a 24-track cut, you know what I mean? It'd be like you'd have to send them something that was expensive and hard to come by in itself, a 24-track tape.
Yeah.
And then they would have to book a studio and to even listen to it, and then go in and work on it and then send it back. It would be an enormous hassle that I don't think happened very often. I don't think people exchange tapes in the post. Because a 24-track tape was about $250, $300 just to buy one, and he needed the machine and all that. So it was at the very dawn of this era that people were starting to kind of do this easily. And Geoffrey gave it to our sound man and said, I've written this piece of music on a cassette or something, or whatever I first heard it off. And that was on a CD, it was burnt onto a CD. And I went back to my room and played it, and it was really, it demanded my attention. It was like, as soon as I heard it, I realized, I knew. He said, I've written it for you, and if no one else, and if you won't sing on it, then no one will ever sing on it.
Wow!
And I could see why he felt that, and it's a lot different to people who, over the years, have sent me tracks and go, could you sing on this? And I've always thought, well, I could, but it's not really demanding that I do. So every now and then, a guy sent me one a couple of weeks ago, and he was he sent me a track and said, have a listen to this. And he said, I think you should sing on it. And when I listened to it, I could see why he thought that, and I did sing on it. But other people sometimes send me kind of lukewarm instrumentals and things that really don't have much to do with me, and then I don't sing on them. But if somebody sings me something that's just fucking right, you can be sure I will actually sing on it.
Certainly. In terms of the lyrics that were produced for this, was it a shift in what would normally come out with the church?
For that song?
Well, I mean...
For that song or for Isidore?
Yeah, for Isidore, yeah. I mean...
Well, you know, I never really... I'd never change what I would write. So if someone would come up, if Jeffrey came up with a piece of music, or if the church came up with a piece of music, or some new unknown person came up with a piece of music and gave it to me, I would write the lyrics that were appropriate to that song, no matter what the name of the project was. So it's kind of turned out that a lot of the lyrics I did write for Jeffrey were different, but it wasn't a conscious change. I wasn't sitting there going, oh no, that's too much like the church or something. It was just, I guess, just working with him and the kind of music he was writing dictated sort of trickier. I became a lot trickier than I think with Jeffrey, and I think the second album too is kind of got some more tricky lyrics than I do. I do albums over here with a guy called Martin Kennedy who gives me instrumental music, but that's very simple music. It's not like Jeffrey's. It's not so busy and sort of doing unusual things. And I tend to find that makes more straightforward kind of lyrics, where Jeffrey's music, which is very busy and often kind of slightly nebulous for me, when I first hear it, I can't hear I can't sort of pick the patterns in it, and that makes me kind of write and come up with different kinds of lyrics, and something where I can hear at the first time, obviously, what the music's doing, something very simple.
Sure. And I know it was like a sort of a 7-year layover between, obviously, because of different lives and projects. And has it ever been a touring proposition, or is it something that you could play live, or...?
Well, Jeffrey's... it's strangely enough, I got up this morning, Jeffrey's written to me, please Skype me, so who knows, maybe he's got something on the boil.
Yeah.
I think it could be a touring proposition. I'm not sure how it would be. I could certainly do the singing, but I don't know how he's going to be doing all those layers.
But yeah.
Apparently, you know, he's got on tracks where there's lots of little things ticking over all the time. I don't know how it would be. So no, we've never tried to actually play it live.
Yeah. And of course, he's based in the States, right?
He's down in Alabama.
Oh, Alabama, yeah. Great, and well, who knows what he's going to be asking you? Maybe part 3. Has that have been spoken about at all?
I think it'd be a little too early for that. I think he's either saying. I think he's saying something about doing some gigs, or I don't know. Maybe he's just saying, "Do you want me to send you another box of CDs?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll soon find out. I'm sure there will be some more Isidore.
Yeah.
In the meantime, I'll definitely be playing a lot of the album here, and we've got the first album too. I've been playing that at home a lot,
good.
So they've got that in the library. So I'll do a full set.
That was like an album that kind of went missing at the time, and
it's
it didn't sort of get reviewed or played or anything very much. Which was a bit of a shame. Yeah, but it still sounds good today.
Oh, really? It's like, I mean, it's the first time I've heard it just in the last week. Because I guess it escaped
you heard
me
the second one first?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Oh, how strange.
Yeah. If anyone's been listening for a while to this show, the first time I chatted with Steve, I asked him a little bit, just briefly, about his yogic practice. Steve has been doing yoga asanas for some time, keeps him fit and in fine form when he's on stage, still doing great work with the church. But yoga, of course, is a multifaceted spiritual path. And Bhakti Yoga is very much part of the yogic tradition, and it's devotional. It means fostering love and utter faith and surrender to God. as a means to realize God. And what I picked up in a lot of Steve's lyrics and some of his poetry online is a very devotional aspect. And of course, track 3 from the album Isidore that I played for you was called Sanskrit, and there's been other sort of references. I've been waiting to chat with you again for the longest time, to talk again a little bit more about yoga, because, the song Sanskrit that came up on the 3rd track, I was like, wow, here we go, here's another reference. And there's, even on the new album, the Headlight Child record song has a lyrical reference to the Hindu Kush. And of course your poetry seems so devotional, what you put up on your blog. I'm wondering about your own explorations into Bhakti Yoga in particular, the yoga of devotion and
yoga of devotion. Well, let me say, a strange thing happened. I got into some hard drugs, and back in the 90s, and I was in my house, living in my house on my own, and a lot of people had come and gone through my house over the years, and I had a library in one room, and people had added to, and I presume taken away from the library. And I was in my house, and I was very lonely and kind of miserable and isolated. And I was looking in my library one day, and I started finding all this literature about Krishna, written by Bhakti Vedanta, and who brought the Hare Krishna movement. And I I devoured all the books, and I then moved on to I read the Bhagavad Gita, and then I read the Srimad Bhagavatam, which was this 20-volume set. And since those days, I've been very much sort of always in or never far from the idea of Bhakti Yoga. So I understand. And just recently I've been observing it in my children, 3 teenage girls here who have gotten into this boy band called One Direction, who show all the signs of Bhakti Yoga, sort of swooning, crying, one-pointed obsession about their gods, and except there's no religion at the end of it. It's just a sort of a pop phenomenon, but it's all the same kind of thing.
Yeah, it's emotion. Yeah, that's right.
Why are you into Bhakti Yoga? Are you?
Well, yeah, just here in Vancouver. I mean, it's quite a hotbed. I mean, there are big kirtans that are held. I mean, I have a teacher here of the yoga philosophy. I just last night went to a kirtan. So there's a movement here, and I often wondered about Australia. It's probably a bit more under the radar there.
Well, it came in the 1960s and was big for a while in the 1970s. They've still got a really nice restaurant where we should go one night, Sam, in North Sydney. A really nice restaurant here, and they've still got a shop. But I'd say it's pretty much it. I mean, at one stage it threatened to become a real thing, but I think now it's pretty quiet. I think that it's these materialistic days. But Bhakti Yoga is an amazing thing, and the principles of it, I mean, I couldn't say I'm really practicing it now. I'm not going to any kirtans or I'm not chanting, but I've certainly got pictures of Krishna up in my room, and I think about, and I write about Vishnu, and I've got Buddha, who is as you know, may or may not be the 8th incarnation of Vishnu, sitting outside in my, and so it's kind of there, but it's sort of a bit in the background.
Yeah, definitely. I often see references on the Time Being website. Yeah, it's great to read.
Yeah. So you're actively involved in the movement, are you?
I guess. I mean, I have a close relationship with a very good teacher here, one of the best in North America. It's just culturally here in Vancouver, it seems to be the right place for it to be coming out and circulating. Yoga.
Okay. Well, let me tell you, I was in rehab in America in 1994. And I was coming off a really big drug habit, and I was sick and demoralized and in the worst possible shape that a man could be in. I hadn't slept, and I was anxious. And one night, and I was sharing a room with a bass player from a group called the Pornos for Pyros.
Oh, yeah, Perry Farrell.
I was in a room with him, and he left the room for a while, and I was lying on my bed, and I was so wretched, I was so miserable and ill, and I'd been, some friends of mine had come in, and I'd been reading all this Bhakti Vedanta stuff, and I actually got down on my knees and prayed and said, that they say you don't give people more than they can handle, and I said, well, I can't handle this anymore. And immediately, bang, there it was, that thing I'd always wanted, and it was there, and there was no mistake, and it was stronger than reality, and it picked me right up off the floor, put me back in bed, and I lay down and I slept for half an hour. And I hadn't slept for 3 weeks at this stage, so that was a great blessing, to sleep for half an hour. And in my little dream that I had during the sleeping, in lucid dream, I was walking with Krishna, and it was just like they say it was, in some beautiful paradise.
Wow.
And I was walking along and strolling, and he was talking to me, and it was just like it was. And then after I woke up, I started walking up and down the corridors of the Exodus Rehab Center, the one that Kurt Cobain escaped from.
Wow.
And I was walking up and down there, and they were so suspicious of me, they grabbed me and piss-tested me and said, okay, what do you want? Because half an hour before I was lying there vomiting and couldn't move. So it really worked. But you know what? Because I humbly and desperately cried out with not 1 ounce of intellect and not 1 ounce of anything, let's see what you can do, but with a complete, just like a baby screaming for its mother, a baby screaming for its mother in desperation, it answered. The force answered. But as I walked around this rehab feeling smug and clever and like, wow, I've really got God now, started thinking about and intellectualizing it, the feeling began to kind of run away. So that was the problem. Getting it, one thing, keeping it is another.
Yeah.
And even though for months and months after that, I walked around chanting and singing My Sweet Lord by George Harrison and anything reading about Krishna. I even went to Sweden, where I was living at the time, and I was in fields full of cows singing Hare Krishna, and they were all following me around.
Wow.
But I never got another... and making farmers angry. They were angry that I was singing to their cows that they were about to slaughter. Can you believe that? Anyway, I never got it again, never came back, but I never, ever manifested that level of need again.
Yeah.
And I believe if you really need it and you really want it and you one-pointedly cry out for it, you will get it. But if there's any one little bit of you going, ooh, Krishna's going to come into my mind or something, it ain't going to fucking happen.
Yeah, being attached to some specific outcome, because, that's right. Well, thanks so much for sharing that, Steve. It's wonderful to hear that.